Yeah. Okay, so you guys are all writers, as well as the other things you do. You've all acted in it as well. The movies.
I haven't acted that much.
I
wasn't in this one actually.
And what you have done couldn't really be considered.
I would not consider myself an actor. No.
You're all right. Look around you.
Yeah.
So,
Son of Rambo.
but you've all written.
Interview.
And what I'm curious about is whether you're more influenced by screenwriters, like I don't know whether it would be the 40s or 50s, some of the best screenwriters are from the 40s, or newer, or if it's more novelists, or what your influences are in terms of writing.
I've done probably a bit of everything. I'd say in terms of the sci-fi element in this movie, definitely novelists, or both books and adaptations of novels. So there's a lot of British writers that have an influence on this movie. If it be John Wyndham, John Christopher, Nigel Neal, they're all both the films and TV shows that have come from their work. I guess in terms of contemporary, that's a good question. I think it was maybe more you tend to think of people that kind of, I don't want to say auteurs, but writer-directors, like the Coen brothers or something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be a big influence.
I'd say definitely, for Edgar and I, Raising Arizona is a huge influence on us, because it was, for both of us, I think, one of the first films we saw, comedy films we saw, when we realised that it didn't have to just be about the people. The camera work could be funny, the direction could be funny. Even though it's slightly more obvious, the writing can be funny. The way that film has a beautiful sort of poetic structure was wow, this is, it's the whole deal here. It's not just funny people in front of a camera. And so definitely the Coens as writers, but,
Even people Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, they're kind of classic screenplays, whereas the sort of structural elements in that,
I think I never wanted to act. I always wanted to be a novelist. I was always I used to romanticize the kind of somber life that Solzhenitsyn might have. My writing's always kind of a bit darker. I need Simon to perk it up and cheer things up a little bit. So I always yearn for kind of living in a little cold room, eating
Starving to death?
Watery soup.
That's real writing.
That's quite romantic for me. That's kind of what I yearn for.
writing about the fact that you've got a headache.
Yeah. That's kind of my influences in terms of.
So this is the second part of the question, which is, since you guys write together, various mixtures thereof, how do you balance out the different ways that you write to create the finished product?
Simon cuts my rug.
I feel like we have a different. It's funny writing with for me, because I've written with both of them. They have done stuff together, but it never came to any fruition. Weirdly enough, it was a pub crawl. I think you guys were trying to.
That was a long time ago. Yeah. That was pre-Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. You settle into your sort of your way of doing things, really, and both of us, all three of us, like to always be in the same room if we're writing. Usually sit opposite each other, come to ideas through discussion. You start very broad. You start with a flip chart on index cards or something, grand ideas, which are then refined and boiled down like a stock to something very specific until it's just the like that. And he's a big food.
My language.
Until you're just dealing with the punctuation.
Rich demi-glace.
Yeah.
I think I think sort of Shaun and World's End were more similar in the writing. Hoffa's slightly different, but Shaun and World's End, we sort of put lots of our personal experience and anecdotal experience and things that have happened to us into the script. So there are so many elements that are from our lives, or from kind of hearsay about other people in our family, and you just hear of other people, or things even in culture, even Gary and Andy, we sometimes talked about rifts in bands, but there's a lot of anecdotal and personal experience that go into those two. Hoffa's was a little bit like that, but then we actually did a lot of research on the police.
Other people's anecdotes.
Yeah, we actually interviewed police, and we kind of got lots of stuff out of interviews. But it's the same thing, it's exactly what Simon said, is you have a massive ideas, and then as the plot starts to take shape, you kind of start putting them in like pins on a board. It's like this is where this goes, this is where this goes. And on this one, it was like we had a very we knew exactly what the sort of story was and the structure, and then we would work out where kind of like different incidents happened, which characters would come in which pubs, where they would come back, at what point kind of like Gary's kind of plan changes, all these kind of things. So it was working out over 12 steps. We had like 12 bars, and we knew that we were going to have that number, and so once that story never really wavered, then it's all about kind of just weaving in different kind of like subplots and running jokes and tensions, and it was fun.
And the irony being that the Golden Mile with 12 pubs, Gary's 12 steps to recovery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You obviously did that on purpose.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking, because I got that. I love that.
I feel like the movie is basically about like Gary escapes from help and actually unwittingly brings on his own intervention. That's kind of what happens at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Well, I like that it touches on the theme of nostalgia, that some of us have goals in mind that we wanted to do as young, but we couldn't complete. So I'd like to know from each of you, was there a goal from in your past or recently that you always wanted to achieve, but never had a chance, but you want to do it?
Well, if you're going way, way back, I think I wanted to be an astronaut when I was very young. I don't think that's ever going to happen, although maybe like Virgin Galactic, like 250k, go up into space with Russell Brand and Susan St. James.
Why does Russell Brand go to space?
I don't know, I think on the first flight booked, there's somebody, it's not Susan St. James, it's somebody else.
Sarah Brightman's going, I think.
Well, she did that single, I Fell in Love with the Starship Trooper, so she should get the ticket for free. They should waive her fee.
I wanted to be a spaceman when I was a kid. I remember a thing I drew in my classroom of what you wanted to be when you grew up, and I drew a spaceman. And I'd like to say I didn't get to do it, but I'm the engineer on the motherfucking Starship Enterprise. So
That's right. I think you could.
Also, Dan Doyle.
What did you want to be as a kid?
I don't know. I think probably I always fancied, being like a river sheriff, a water sheriff.
Why river sheriff? Have hats.
Well, you're responsible for a stretch of river, and you just wander around, big waders on, and cutting weed, and just making sure the river's all right.
So I have to pay you a toll every time I cross a river.
No, you can come for free.
But you know one of those
some with the land,
hovercrafts that they had in Gentle Ben? Like what do they call them?
On the boat.
On the Everglades. Isn't there a film about a river sheriff? Striking distance.
Yeah.
But no, I'm sorry, but a river sheriff isn't a cop. He actually takes care of that section.
It's like a ranger. It's like a ranger for water.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. An aqua ranger. Right there.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, for like your two movies, Shaun of the Dead, and then this one, would you rather experience a zombie apocalypse or like a body snatcher type apocalypse?
Oh, not to give too much away, I'd much rather be in the epilogue of this movie. I think that would be pretty fun. I think you get to LARP for real.
Right.
LARP? What's that?
Live action role play.
Nick and I would, and I'm speaking for you here, but it was always part of Shaun of the Dead evolved from a fantasy that we used to have about trying to survive the Romero universe, and I think the great thing about the old school zombie, and something that's been lost recently in the sort of desperation to make it somehow more interesting, or it didn't need to be made more interesting, is the fact that the zombie offers you a chance. They're inept, they're not very good, they're not particularly scary, you get to know them, they're brilliant. The old slow zombie is a fat movie creation that's been diminished by this kind of, this running thing. Because if you're careful, anyone stands a chance in a zombie universe.
Right.
You just don't take them for granted. That just gives you a fighting chance, and so I'd always go for the zombie.
If you read The Day of the Triffids, the end of that book could be your survival manual for your zombie apocalypse.
It's good to know. I'll have to keep that in mind.
Indeed.
Yeah, find an island.
English thing to say.
and police it. Yeah.
Get you as the water
Once
sheriff.
you clear it from north to south, east to west, and there are no zombies. All you then have to do is worry about your perimeter and essentially start a culture.
Did you eat the Triffids? In theory.
I don't know.
Super sure.
Did they? Could you cut up a triffid and put it in the stew?
You could probably stew
I
down
think
its
there's
bottom.
probably a temperature at which it would actually boil.
Yeah,
At
you
which
got to cut
point
the
it would
stick
be
around.
safe. Yeah, exactly.
It's like
It's only the venom food. That's the only issue. If you cut them, I mean, you know, they dock the triffids in the beginning, but just by cutting the melon sacs out, the venom sacs, you know. So I think once you got rid of that venom sac, you'd be fine.
It's just a shame it just tastes a lot like broccoli.
Yeah.
Obama would like it.
deadly broccoli.
So
Let's. Can we waffle? Can we just? Why don't we do 3 quick questions each? Not each. 1 quick question each, and then.
well, I was going to bring up Sisters of Mercy, but instead,
Oh,
I know that costume is very influential. Looks like the lead singer.
It's a way of life.
Exactly. I was right there with you. Okay, so favorite movie
of all time.
Yeah.
It's already been mentioned. Raising Arizona is my favorite movie.
Oh, so
Nice.
give me another one. You got go back. All right, let's see.
Give me a genre.
Pre 1960. For writing, pre 1960.
Pre 1960 for writing.
Because you do kind of need to get narrow.
Pre 1960 for
I'm trying to
writing.
throw some curves.
Something like
in
a volley.
place. That's great. That's
Wonderful.
great writing.
North by Northwest.
1957. Yeah. Okay. Good. And
Close Encounters for me is my favourite film.
well, but okay, 1979, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
But still.
Although we went to Devil's Tower, we were at Paul, and we asked them what was it like when the film was there, and they said, "What film?" What film?
Did you do the little thing?
Yeah,
The
Zoltan Kadali.
Wonderful. Well, since the Cornell trilogy is bittersweet, it's coming to an end, what are your thoughts that this is the final film? And would you change your mind down the road and do a 4th film?
Oh, we will do a 4th film, but it won't be part of that series of films. You know.
So we're thinking another trilogy?
Maybe, I don't know. We're free now to not constrained by the criteria we set ourselves for these 3 films, which is set in the UK, written just by me and Edgar, about loss of identity, this same sort of themes, the fact that there's that ice cream and all of them, the fence gag. There's a very specific set of criteria which define these 3 films, and they all feature. The next film we make together won't have to be any of those things. So we're free to do what we want any old time, to quote Gary King.
Since this movie is kind of about nostalgia, I was just wondering what you guys are nostalgic about. Like, I know you were in Star Trek, so I don't know if you like that as a kid, and you're developing Ant-Man. I don't know if you like that as a kid, or just whatever.
I guess so. I think like what the movie's about sometimes the dangers of nostalgia about too much. Look forward and not look back. But I think that the one thing that is always a positive thing to get nostalgic about is music. I mean, I love, music is like an instant sort of portal into the past, and I listen to the songs on this soundtrack, and it makes me think of what I was doing at the time. Like, So Young by Suede. I remember being in a car journey listening to that with my friend and singing along with it. So it immediately kind of just snaps me back to like moments. So
Right.
I think music makes me very nostalgic.
Nothing. I'm not a nostalgic person. I've always lived.
Didn't you have a grifter or something?
Yeah, but that was, I don't think
You're
I
gonna ride it
was
out.
on that bike. It was. I think I'm always fortunate that I'm quite impulsive. So, I'm not sitting at home now thinking, God, I wish I'd told that girl I loved her, or
Right.
because I kind of did, for better or for worse, and I regretted it then, and it's now.
It's a good way to live.
Nostalgia sounds like a medical term. It's like
It is.
It does, yeah.
And I think nostalgia is the condition of not living in the present, and it would mean that you're not happy. So nostalgia is not a good thing. I look back fondly on some things, but I'm glad I'm here now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yes, looking back fondly, but no.
In terms of that bike, it's like, yeah, that bike was great then, but as a 15-year-old kid, if someone said you can drive this car that does 200 miles an hour, I'd say yes.
Yeah, it was cool at the time.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much.